everyone, it's Sevy. The Spiral Abyss updated and it's a new set of enemies this time, so I wanted to share some tips on how you can beat floor 11 and 12. There's a bunch to cover, so let's get into it. The Abyssal Moon effect clearly incentivizes Electro-Charged team comps. I wonder why. The format of this video is that I'll show my runs and comment over them. I'll also give general recommendations regarding gameplay and team comps. Obviously, I can't cover all the possible teams, so it's ultimately up to you to decide what teams you'll adapt to the floors depending on what's available to you. Also, if any particular chamber is difficult for your team, don't be afraid to just restart the floor with a different team so that you can 3-star the incomplete chambers. Let's start with floor 11 and later move up to floor 12. So for the first half, I prefer to use Electro and or Pyro units for a straight run, as they can deal with all the elements you'll encounter. Running Cryo units is possible, particularly in the first and third chamber, coupled with Hydro for freeze, but that kind of team will take longer in the second chamber due to the Hydro-Cryo immunity of the Slime's Inspectors. Here, I used an Overload Yanfei, Fischl, Beidou, and Bennett team. For the second half, while Electro and Pyro are my first half's recommendation, this is where we can place Cryo, Hydro, and Anemo for a freeze team, which is a good combo to counter the mobs in each chamber. Anemo units help a lot to crowd control the enemies and spread or swirl elemental auras. In this team, I'm using Kokomi, Rosaria, Kaya, and Sucrose. Now to start the run. In this first bit, head straight for the Hydro Herald since the Cryo Mage will just follow. Keep your back to the edge so that if the Herald charges at you, they'll charge into the wall.
Back off! Eyes on me! Boom!
Pyro and Electro attacks are fast enough at getting rid of the Mage and Herald's shield. A Cryo unit can also be used to freeze the Herald, but isn't necessary. You want to use dodging skills as much as possible, but you can take your time since there are only 2 enemies and the time limit is 5 minutes.
Incinerate! Let's light it up! Motion to compare.
Now for the second half, you can focus on the Whopper flowers that spawn in front of you. The others will teleport close to you anyway.
Judgment! Punishment!
Use your AoE abilities to deal with them quickly.
Dodge this! Billowing surge!
And once they're dead, head to the closest Geo Vishap to you, since the other will just follow, so you can also fight them together.
Lights out.
Don't get frostbite.
Stand clear. Animal test 6308. Enhanced animal module 75.
Cool it.
Judgment.
Freeze.
Roast and rebuild. Let's move out. A British maneuver. Motion to compel.
For this chamber, I lure the first mob to where I spawned first, since the next wave spawns there too. It's more convenient for me compared to running to where they are, then running back to the next mob. The Hydro Spectres are able to heal fellow enemies, so you can try destroying them first to avoid prolonging the fight.
Power that ended high shot. Boom boom. Let's light it up! Teamwork is dream! Odds reveal!
One potential risk here with running an overload team is that it can knock back light enemies away from you. This doesn't get in the way too much if you have a ranged character like Yanfei, and you can knock them back towards the edge to corner them. Break the Hydro Mage's shield first. Here, it's really easy for you to get permafrozen towards the end because of the combo of hydro and cryo projectiles from the enemies. So try to keep moving and dodging to avoid getting afflicted by them. Now in the second half, all the enemy mobs will spawn in the same place, so you don't need to move around too much.
Absorption test. Stand clear. Covenant of the Deep.
Kill the Dendrosamoturil quickly in the second batch because things can get annoying if it spawns vines.
Shiver.
Don't get frostbite.
Absorption test. Swirl. Mark 2. You can't run.
Freeze.
And dealing with a Pyromage's shields should be easy if you brought a Hydro or Cryo unit.
This moment will be frozen in
Animal test 6308. Billowing surge. Judgment.
cool it.
Absorption test. Animal test 6308.
Freeze.
Allow me.
In the last chamber, the Electro Rift Hounds do move around a lot, so I run towards the wall and edge bait them to keep them together there.
Let's light it up. I'm going in. Odds revealed.
AoE attackers like Shengling and Yanfei here are helpful once you've grouped them all up. Since this is the last chamber, you don't have to worry about HP passing on to the next chamber, but it's possible to get overwhelmed since all the Rift Hounds spawn right from the start. The way I overcame this is by Bennett's fast healing. Another way is just by nuking them as fast as possible with big bursters. So just kill them as quickly as you can, keep dodging and crowd controlling. In the last half of floor 11, for these lectors, my strategy is to go to one side and bait the farther one towards you. Here, I moved to the Pyrolector's side and waited for Electrolector to come closer and help his boyfriend out. Now they're close enough to freeze and attack together.
Oh, so sorry.
Stand clear. Swirl. Mark 2. Absorption test. Stand clear. Covenant of the Deep.
Electro energy drain can be annoying, so dodge as much as you can, and if your energy gets drained, just continue using your skill rotations to recharge bursts.
Proclamation.
Yeah.
Grace be upon you.
Swirling the lectors, like I did with Sucrose, makes them overload react with one another, thereby reducing their shields faster. If done with Venti, this becomes much faster since his burst swirls them together.
Dodge this. This moment will be frozen.
Absorption test. Yeah.
And that's it for floor 11. Now on to floor 12. In floor 12, there's no leyline disorder. The first half is easy and can be done without a healer if you can dodge or freeze the Rift Hounds in the first chamber, and the subsequent ruin enemies can be more easily dodged or iframed. For the first half, I used a taser team consisting of Kokomi, Fischl, Beidou, and Sucrose. Beidou in particular is such a good combo throughout the first half thanks to her chain lightning versus 2 to 3 opponents. The second half is where most of your time will be required, and it's a higher DPS check than the first. For the second chamber in particular, you ought to have at least one Geo unit to make the boss Wolflord easier. Use whatever boss killing team is at your disposal. My team consisted of Yoimiya, Xingqiu, Bennett, and Zhongli. So in the first chamber, once again, edge bait the Rift Hounds so you can keep them together when they charge you. For teams, my personal recommended options are Freeze Team, which uses Hydro, Cryo, and Animo, or Electrocharge Team, which is Hydro, Electro, and Animo, or a mix of both, Freeze with an Electro unit. That's not to say these are the only teams, as you could do it as well with, say, a Hyper Raiden team, but Freeze and Taser teams work well for disabling the Rift Hounds and dealing AoE damage. Electro teammates like Fischl and Beidou are helpful for reducing the electro resistance of the Rift Hounds.
Absorption test. Swirl, Mark 2. Wings of darkness. Billowing surge.
This needs dodging or freezing to avoid getting hit by the Rift Hounds, or you can just kill them really fast with AoE burst units.
Stand clear.
In the second half, there are energy drain mechanics here via the orbs they fire, but that can be managed or avoided with enough dodging skills. You don't have to perfectly dodge all the orbs, as I wasn't able to in this run as well, though the energy drain will take more of your time.
Stabilize.
Everybody stand. Ring cutter. Know my sword. Feel the split.
If energy is a problem for you, equipping Favonius weapons is always a good idea if you have some leveled up, though not necessary.
That didn't count. Here come the fireworks. Let's light it up. Rain outlines your. I'm going in. Rain cutter. Fuse is lit.
In the second chamber, at the start, I'll try to run to the far side of the room. These ruin graders can bulldoze around and spread out, but you can manage that a bit by making them run into the wall.
Animal test 6308. Enhanced animal module 75.
Once you get them together, it's a lot easier to use your AoE attacks on them both. Be sure to keep iframing their attacks with dodging so you don't get staggered or too damaged.
Wings of darkness. Torrent, bring refuge.
And now here's the Golden Wolflord. While it's coming out of the crack, you can use skills on it to recharge your bursts if needed. If it gets too hard, you can always reset floor 12 just to save your bursts for this chamber. You can attack Wolflord while it's still in the air if you have a ranged character like I do with Yoimiya here. Its tail whip can cause corrosion, which can stack even through shields. You may end up losing a lot of HP from it, so it's best to avoid those attacks. There's a phase where it's pretty near the ground, so you can do some damage here while avoiding its blast. It's very short, but if you have a Yoimiya, Hu Tao, a well-timed Eula burst, or the like, that can help a lot. Once its shield is up, you need to destroy those wolf structures with geo attacks. In my case, I used Zhongli. On the first structure, I summoned the pillar too far. The pillar ticks will destroy them in time, but it's inefficient. Try to dodge the yellow areas on the ground to avoid the earthquake damage. On the second structure, the pillar overlapped the structure, which depleted 2/3 of its health, but made the pillar disappear, so I had to resummon it. Then, on the third attempt, I placed it close enough to damage it, but far enough that it doesn't get destroyed immediately. Then the subsequent tick destroyed it completely. Now that its shield is down and it's disabled and on the ground, just pop out all your damage and kill it as fast as you can. Using Ningguang against the Wolflord shield structures would be easier since her normal attacks are geo damage. If you bring her, I'd personally recommend equipping her with Prototype Amber for more survivability. Goro can also get rid of it with his charged geo shots, and Yunjin's fully charged skill can destroy the wolf structures instantly. The first half of Chamber 3 is a similar technique as the previous chamber, where you just want to keep them together, use AoE attacks, or keep them frozen. Dodge, shield, and iframe their attacks as much as possible.
Mark 2, stand clear. Wings of darkness. Billowing surge.
This should be fairly quick, around 30 to 60 seconds or less if you have the right units, to leave enough time for the second half.
Absorption
For this last bit, these Vishaps will spawn in front on the other side, and they'll stay there for a short while. I charge towards it first to recharge my bursts and do damage. Don't forget to dodge their energy draining orbs. Here I did one attack rotation with Yoimiya before they jump across back to where I started, and they start doing bullet attacks from their tails. A shielder helps a lot in tanking their bullet attacks.
Rain outlines your fate.
I will have order.
Teamwork is dreamwork. Let me leave you a verse.
After that, they'll continue moving around together, so it's just a matter of alternating which you're damaging so they maintain similar HP.
Everybody stand back.
Then they'll jump in the center to do their combined attack, which is also a good opportunity to whittle down their HP.
Stabilize.
You have to kill them both within 10 seconds of each other, or the dead one will resurrect with around 40% of its original HP.
Fire hazard.
And it's done! I hope you picked up some useful tips that will help your Abyss run. Let me know in the comments how you found this Abyss cycle and which teams you used. If this helped you out, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already for more Genshin Impact guides and content, and I will see you all soon. Take care!